All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMAUnhinged. Today, we're talking about UFC 273, Muhammad versus Luke, and then Bellator happening this weekend. We've got such a fantastic episode to talk about. We'll get a recap UFC 273, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there is, man. We had a big old fight card this past Saturday, and we have two big fight cards this Saturday as well. There's a lot to talk about this episode, so I say, why waste any time? And let's get right into UFC 273 that happened this past Saturday in Jacksonville, Florida. Alexander Volkanovski defeated the Korean Zombie via fourth round TKO, and this was a one-sided fight the whole way through. In the first round, Volkanovski hurt Chan Sung Jung, and in the second round, it's more the same. And in the third round, he hurts him really bad. He knocks him down, lands a vicious ground pound. I thought Herb was about to stop it, but Zombie somehow survives it. And after the second round, the guy didn't even sit on a stool. He was so, mentally defeated. And then in the fourth round, not only was he not sitting on the stool, he actually looked like an actual zombie because of the beating he had taken. It was really tough to see a legend like Zombie take that kind of beating. And then Herb Dean made sure that the doctor checked on the zombie, and he said he was okay to fight. And Volkanovski asked him if he was sure. Volkanovski obviously felt bad putting the boots to Zombie like that. Eventually, he landed another vicious right hand, and Zombie's head rocked back viciously, and Herb just waved it off right then and there. It was kind of a boxing stoppage, a standing TKO for Volkanovski. And this is the finish that Volkanovski has wanted to get for a long time. And it's not really his fault that he's not getting finishes as of late, because he's fighting some of the most durable fighters in the UFC's history. In his last fight, he fights Brian Ortega, who is impossible to knock out. Well, he fights Max Holloway, never been knocked down, and he's the most hittable fighter in UFC history. And before that, who does he fight? Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, you'll give him a pass on that. But finally, he got his hands on a guy who's not as durable, at least these days. And Zombie's now 35. This was his last shot at the title. And quite honestly, didn't really deserve this title shot. And Volkanovski made that plainly obvious with the beating he put on him. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is the best performance that I've seen from Alexander Volkanovski. He seems to get better every single fight, and I think this was the cherry on the top. I think this is the best performance I've ever seen. And as you're saying, Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, probably didn't deserve this fight, this title fight, and it showed that there's levels above in the featherweight division. You've got Max Holloway and you've got Volkanovski at the top, and I think there's just a massive gap between the rest of them. I just don't see anyone that out of that side, that top, obviously Volkanovski and Holloway, who could probably challenge them to. It's incredible how big the gap is, but Volkanovski is a champ. He's ridiculous. He's a champion, and he proved it once again why he's one of the most underrated champions inside the UFC, or if not the most underrated champion we have in the UFC. And he goes out in the post fight after the fight, and he said he wants to go up to 155, and that Holloway trilogy doesn't really fancy it, which I loved it. So I can't complain.
When you got guys like Islam Makhachev with a huge 9-fight or 10-fight win streak waiting in the wings, I think it's very inappropriate to call for a title shot in that division right now. If you're Volkanovski, especially when you have a lot of killers in your division right now. The featherweight division is easily one of the best. Right now, you got Arnold Allen with a huge win streak. In the division, you have Calvin Kattar making his way back. Yair Rodriguez is going to fight Brian Ortega. There's a lot of young guys making their way up, and I think Volkanovski will have his hands full for if he stays champion. I think he'll have his hands full for the next 5 years. Quite honestly, it's going to be very hard to overcome the challenges in the division. And Volkanovski, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Volkanovski. The guy is super well-rounded. He's got a great chin, great submission defense. He did eat some clean shots from the Zombie and took them like they were nothing. Volkanovski is a guy that definitely is underappreciated. And I feel like after the Ortega fight, their perspective by the fans changed. And this only helped because now he's got a vicious masterclass performance in the octagon to prove how good he is. Volkanovski, I believe the trilogy with Max Holloway should be next because it was the fact that already was set to happen. And not only that, Max Holloway has already gotten 2 very high quality wins since that rematch. He beat Calvin Kattar, best performance in UFC history probably. After that, he fights Yair Rodriguez in one of the best featherweight fights ever. I don't know how you don't give the title shot to Max Holloway next, especially when he appears to be healthy and ready to compete for the belt next. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And if you ask me right now, I think Volkanovski wins that fight. He's just firing on all cylinders, honestly.
Yeah, I've got to agree. At the moment, Volkanovski looks unbeatable, unchallengeable. But if there is one guy to do it, you've got to give it to the Blessed Express. They've had 2 hard fights. Arguably could have went the other way, but I think that if someone's going to push Volkanovski, I think it's going to be Holloway.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And that would be a fantastic fight once it gets booked. I would say probably happens this year around the fall time, hopefully. And we'll
100%.
move on to the co-main event. The champion, Aljamain Sterling, successfully defended his bantamweight championship against Petr Yan, the former interim champion. And this was a very controversial decision if you were looking at what the fans had to say online. The real debate surrounds the first round. The first round was a round where Aljamain Sterling did outstrike Petr Yan, but some, including myself, would argue that Yan did land the more impactful strikes, and he controlled the octagon really well the whole fight. So I will slightly side with Yan in that round, but I won't call you crazy if you gave it to Aljamain Sterling. There's a real argument he did win that round, but that second round is another debate piece because Aljamain Sterling got over 4 minutes of control time, and he landed vicious ground pound in that round, and he was threatening the rear naked choke the whole time. I think that was a 10-8 round. So if you give the first round to Yan 10-9, second round to Sterling 10-8, third round to Sterling 10-9, fourth round to Yan 10-9, fifth round to Yan 10-9, then that's a draw. That's what I believe this fight was. This fight was very closely contested, and I really thought it was a draw. I got to give all the credit to Sterling here, even though I don't exactly in my heart believe he's the champion right now. That guy showed up as the best version of himself, and he really dominated one of the best fighters on the planet for 2 rounds. I have to give him all the credit for that. It's obvious that the last time around, his weight cut did not go well. He fought at an awful pace, and he fixed those things this time around. So all the credit goes to Sterling. I don't believe he would able to pull off this type of performance in the trilogy, quite honestly, because Yan definitely learned a lot. Let's not forget, Yan is not, I don't believe Yan is a finished product yet, not even 30 years old. And yeah, just in his next fight, I think he'll do anything to avoid getting his back taken because Sterling is an absolute monster on his back. Yes, Yan got some really good offensive grappling going in the later rounds, but it was just not enough. Honestly, this is a fight that would have benefited from open scoring.
I've got to agree. I think the open scoring would make things interesting, and I think that would make Yan be more aggressive, even though he was aggressive, but just that little bit more. Yeah, as you were talking about Aljamain Sterling, he's a monster, man. If he gets on your back, you ain't got a chance to get up, and it really showed. What position you want to call it? Just like that backpack sort of position where he's just sat there and he's just controlling you. And he had Petr Yan flattened out at one point, raining punches. Didn't look great, and it just shows the level of Aljamain Sterling on the ground, controlling a guy like Petr Yan, who's phenomenal at wrestling, phenomenal grappling, and he should control him with ease. And then, as you were talking about, Petr Yan pulling it back in the later stages, but that first round, that's the topic here. And as you were talking about, and it's a very close round. It just depends how you judge it. And if you look at the strikes, the Petr Yan was more active on the strikes, but the wrestling as well. It just depends what type of judge you are. And I gave it to Sterling. I think Sterling, did enough. I think he made the correct adjustments to get it done, but it's such a hard call. I don't think any judge could agree on this. Like 10 out of times, there's probably a point in the fight where a judge is going to disagree with another judge. So this fight is too close to even call at this point.
Yeah, I do think that if this was scored with the pride rules, this would definitely be a Jan win. All you have to do is look at those strike numbers, but that's not the case. They score it round by round, and that's the result you end up with in this situation. A very tough loss for Piotr Yan fans like me, because this was a split decision. He could have easily won in another world. John Anik, he's good friends with Sterling, good friends with his coach and his whole team. As soon as his coach walked off the mic during their podcast, he tells the audience he thought that Jan won the fight. That lets you know that, and John Anik understands that judging criteria very well. He did score it for Jan, so yeah, I wouldn't say anybody got robbed there, but I'm not sure Sterling is the champion right now. I'll just say that, and he's got TJ Dillashaw to look for after this, and that's no walk in the park.
That's such a great fight. I can't wait for that one. That's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I mean, TJ Dillashaw, former champion, different tools to Peter Yan. Striking is very unorthodox. And it's just going to be a very, very good a good fight. And obviously that wrestling as well, that wrestling background from TJ Dillashaw. Yep. It's going to be hard for Sterling to take him down. So, but we've said that all before. And Sterling, made the correct adjustment. So it'll be interesting. And another test for Sterling. And we'll talk about that soon when it comes down the road. But now we get to talk about Khamzat Chimaev. The train, the prospect, it lives on. And this was the type of fight I think Khamzat Chimaev needed to become champion.
Yeah, I think this was Khamzat Chimaev's version of Khabib versus Gleison Tebow. If you remember, Khabib
Adesanya versus Adesanya versus Gastelum, Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, this is
Yeah. A lot of great fighters, they go like on undefeated runs, and a lot of people doubt them because they'd never really seen him face adversity. And you can't say that about Chimaev anymore. Chimaev, in a way, he did lose in this fight. He lost the second round quite obviously. But in the grand scope of things, he still got the win. So I think that's very important for fighters that are going on win streaks. To not just be complacent. They're still learning despite winning. So I think this is a really good step forward for Chimaev. In the first round, Khamzat Chimaev, he was getting challenged by Burns. Burns was landing good shots, landed a leg kick that knocked down Chimaev, and eventually Chimaev started landing his jab, and one of those jabs stung Gilbert Burns big time. Chimaev hops on top, lands the most vicious ground pound you've ever seen, lands a big elbow, cracks Gilbert Burns open. And I thought Chimaev was on his way to scoring the KO in the second round, but Gilbert Burns has the heart of a lion. He would not go down that easy. Come that second round, Chimaev was thinking he was going to be able to knock out Burns in that round, so he starts loading up on his punches. He does not fight technical. He throws big hooks, leaves himself right open, and Burns took advantage. Burns has really quick hands, former lightweight, and he starts landing those big counter punches and rocks Chimaev on multiple occasions. Burns himself does get tagged a couple times, but at the end of the day, Burns showed that even though some say he may be undersized, I think this guy has the power that can compete with the best at welterweight. He's already shown it, knocked down Usman. And in this fight, he knocked down Chimaev. After Chimaev landed a big uppercut, he knocks down Chimaev. I don't think anybody expected Chimaev to be hurt in this fight. Nonetheless, get knocked down like that. And Chimaev shows how much of a beast he is because he gets right back up and takes down Burns. Chimaev has a granite chin. And that was something some people didn't really know. But now we do know. And even when he's tired, he'll still fight really hard. Showed them in the third round. Burns was fading, it looked like a bit, and he almost got that TKO there, but Burns got the second win, and he won the second half of the third round. In the end, Chimaev was a rightful winner. He got the unanimous decision win, and this was an unforgettable fight. And some people said it could be a fight that we eventually see in the Hall of Fame, like Swanson and Doo Ho Choi. This was just that kind of fight. It was the perfect storm. This reminds me of Jones versus Gustafsson, the first fight. Because Jones seemed untouchable before that, right? And then Gustafsson just goes out there and puts a beating on Jones, and this is a comparable fight. And Chimaev, he's got Colby Covington next. There's so many exciting possibilities for Chimaev. But what did you think of this war?
I mean, there were so many questions about Hamzat Chimaev going into this fight, and I think he's answered every single one of them. After this fight, you talked about we can see that he can take a punch. We learned what Hamzat Chimaev would be like when he's in deep water, he's in trouble, and we saw that he has heart, he has determination, and the mentality of his pressure after he got rocked, as you talked about, he got straight back and he took him down. It just shows the level of IQ that we also found out as well. He's got IQ. I think every single question that needs to be answered from Hamzat Chimaev, he answered it in this fight, and you got to give credit to Gilbert Burns because he showed up and he gave him a dance partner that was willing to show up and give him a great fight. And Gilbert Burns got given his win bonus as well in this fight. And I think it was rightly deserved. I think he put on a fantastic performance, and yet again, I think both stocks rise in this one. I think Gilbert Burns is probably looking at this like it's not really a loss. It's just a little bump in the road sort of thing. And Hamzat Chimaev, the train goes on, and as you talked about, it's Colby Covington next. And you messaged me straight. I think it might have been on your post, and I put Colby. I believe Colby has a great chance, and I stand by that. I think Colby Covington has a fantastic chance against Hamzat Chimaev. I think he might be the fighter to take his own.
Everybody in the practice room said that Chimaev really never got tired. And here's the thing. I don't think any of those sparring matches were like this fight, where Chimaev was in big trouble. He had a big adrenaline dump after the knockdown. It was in front of a huge crowd. There was a lot of elements that Chimaev had not been exposed to prior to this fight. And this is a valuable experience for him. And for the people saying that the hype isn't real anymore because of this, you have to remember this is his 5th UFC fight, and he's beating the number 2 in the world. So even if your expectations for Chimaev were a little lowered, which quite honestly they were for me, because I kind of bigged him up in my thoughts. I was thinking he could probably steamroll Burns here. That was not the case. I do want to apologize to Gilbert Burns on behalf of the entire MMA community for underestimating him. Chimaev was favored to win in the first round, and it just didn't go that way at all. Burns really gave him the fight of his life, and I think Chimaev will put on a great performance against Covington. I don't know if he wins though. But in the next fight, we had Mackenzie Dern versus Tisha Torres. This was a really fun fight. Mackenzie Dern is a very exciting fighter to watch. In that first round, Torres was being the busier fighter. She was landing a lot of kicks. But Dern had relentless pressure, constantly looking like she was going to threaten a takedown. And what's crazy in this fight, she did not get a takedown. Didn't get a single one. And that's what I was thinking would happen in this fight. Dern would not be able to get a takedown, and Torres would keep it on the feet. But I underestimated Mackenzie Dern. I didn't think her striking was going to be good enough to steal a round. And it was. She landed a big right hand that cracked Torres, the most significant strike of the first round, and that sealed the round for her. So come that second round, I thought Torres, might be in a scenario where she could lose a striking battle to Dern, which is a pretty crazy statement to say, but Dern is really improving as a fighter. And eventually she jumps guard and she starts twerking on a Kimura on Dern's arm. And goodness, I thought we were going to see Torres' arm snap, but Torres stayed calm and she defended it well. And eventually she got out of submission attempts from Dern. And I just have to give all the credit to Torres for surviving those. I picked Torres, but if I knew that Dern was going to be able to get those submission attempts like that, I would have never picked her. But Torres is tough as hell. And in that third round, it was such an easy round to score. Torres did a whole lot of good work in that round. She had a really high output, an output I wish she had in the first round. And she obviously won that round. But in the end, I do think the right person won. I think Dern won. But Torres was one of two people on the main card that I lost money on because it was a split decision.
I do agree. I think Mackenzie Dern did enough to get the hand raised. And as you were talking about her adjustments, her improvements in that striking, I think Jason Perillo is doing wonderful, wonderful work on her. And I think a few fights to come. I feel like she's going to be a real problem. She said she wants another top 5, but I'm not too sure about that. I think I want a few more. Not a few more fights outside the top 5, then maybe go back into the top 5. I want to see, her improve significantly for me to have confidence in her in the top 5. But she's improving. That's the thing, though. We're seeing her improving fight by fight, and against Tisha Torres, and her striking looked good, and I think that's a plus for her. I think the confidence after this fight will be high for her. But Mackenzie Dern did what she had to do to win the fight. And if you're Tisha Torres, as you were saying, surviving the submission attempts, I think that's a bonus in yourself, because against Mackenzie Dern, she'll rip your arm off, she'll choke you out. We just know how good she is on the ground. And if you're Tisha Torres, you're probably thinking, you know what, I didn't do too bad on the ground. So she'll probably have confidence moving forward on her ground game. And I think Mackenzie Dern is going to have a lot of confidence in her striking game. And I think it was a good performance, a great fight on the main card.
I agree with you there. And another fight on the main card, it was the opener. Vince Pichel lost to Marco Manson via unanimous decision. Marco Manson has significantly improved as a fighter, in my opinion. In his first UFC fight, he gets a first-round finish. It was one of many quick finishes he had gotten. We had never seen him tested, and that's what happened when he fought Hubbard. He got 8 takedowns against Hubbard, but the problem was he really gassed himself out and lost the 3rd round. So he fixed his error in that fight. He fought Clay Guida and attempted only 1 takedown, got it stuffed, and kept it on the feet and won. So Manson is gaining confidence in his striking. And that's in the first round. He struck with Pichel most of the fight, and he obviously lost that first round. And Manson has never lost a first round before, but the guy's such a good competitor. He goes out there and wins rounds 2 and 3 with his takedowns. He gets the half guard position, which is a great position if you don't, if you just want to rack up control time, which is what Manson needed. And he clearly got this fight. He got the victory here. And yeah, it's very good to see him win a 3rd round finally, because on this podcast, I thought Pichel might have been able to knock him out in that 3rd round, but Manson stayed safe and he got the win here.
Yeah, it was a good card, a good fight to open up. Madsen, as you were talking about, he's got the win. His takedowns 3 out of 3 in that 2nd and the 3rd round, getting it done, and looking better in the 2nd and 3rd round. That I think that was the most important thing, probably for Marco Madsen, is looking better in them later rounds and proving to him, and to himself that he can last a full 3 rounds. And as you were talking about, he got the no takedowns in this fight, and in previous fights when he hasn't got takedowns, he's been asked to stand. And it hasn't looked great when he with the cardio, but in this one you saw improvement. So if you're Marco Madsen, your confidence is going up and you're holding your head high. But it was a great performance. Beating Vince Pichel as well, who's a really good fighter. So he's a very underrated fighter. He's got some phenomenal wins under his belt. Very old, 39 years old, and he doesn't even look it. It's crazy. So this is, if you're Marco Madsen, this is a fantastic win. And against Vince Pichel, who was on a good run, a good form of late as well.
Yeah, Pichel even got a takedown here, so that's something. That's a more victory for Pichel in this spot. I don't think Madsen will be a top 10 guy in the future, but you best believe he'll test anybody's wrestling. He got 100% of his takedowns he attempted in that fight. And we'll move on to the prelim main event. Ian Gary beat Darren Weeks by unanimous decision. A lot of people thought Gary was going to get some quick finish here. I was not one of those people. I gave credit to Weeks, who had never been finished as a pro, and Weeks fought a strategy where he was trying to just get control time on Gary and trying to walk forward, get some strikes going. That just didn't matter. Gary had the reach advantage, the height advantage. He used his range really well. All of his weapons were used effectively in this spot, and he put hands on Darren Weeks in all 3 of the rounds. That first round was close. I gave it to Gary, and rounds 2 and 3 were pretty clear Gary rounds. Gary says his cardio is his greatest tool, and he used it quite well here. Wasn't tired at all. This is a really good performance by Gary. In the future, he will get tested much more than he was in this one, but he did exactly what he needed to do as a big favorite in this fight.
Yeah, I've got to agree. Ian Gary getting the job done again. 2-0 now inside the UFC. I think the train is definitely lifting up to what he said in the future. In the past, I mean. I think the future's bright for Ian Gary, but I think he's going to, as you talked about, he's going to get tested in the future, and I think he's going to maybe hit a bump in the road. I think there's some fights in there that are dangerous in the division, but I think the UFC are going to match him up well, give him favourable matchups, and I think they're going to really develop him in his career. But yeah, Ian Gary looked good. Got the 29-28, 30-27, 30-27, and as you've talked about, uses reach well, uses his height well. But it was a good performance. I'm glad to see him get the job done. The Irishman on the big stage over in America, training out of Stanford MMA. It was good to see him get the job done, and Ian Gary moves on to 2-0 inside the UFC, and another win. It is good, and it was a fantastic performance. I'd like to see where he goes from here, but I think the UFC are going to match him up well, match him up sensible.
Yeah, I believe a matchup like Court McGee would be next for Gary. Probably a better wrestler than Week, so I think that would be wise for Gary next. And we'll move on to what was the second best fight of the night, in my opinion. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez defeated Josh Fremd by unanimous decision. This was an all-action fight. This was a fight that mainly took place on the ground because Hernandez got it there with eight takedowns, and the whole time it was on the ground, Hernandez was attacking submissions, landing vicious ground and pound. This was fought at an insane pace. Josh Fremd was no punk here in this fight. In that second round, he got like 2.5 minutes of control time. He did good for himself in this fight, but he took it on short notice, and it showed here the guy was fading the longer the fight went. Hernandez, on the other hand, not so much. He was putting a lot of effort in those submissions. You would have thought his arms would have been gassed, but he still had gas left in the tank to just keep working in this fight. And the whole fight, he was working hard and got that decision. I'm shocked he was unable to submit Josh Fremd here, especially with 3 submission attempts. He submitted Rodolfo Vieira, could not submit Josh Fremd. That's how crazy this sport is.
Yeah, I mean that you would never think you would say that in the same sentence. In terms of how good Vieira is on the ground, and no disrespect to Fremd, but it's levels above him. And as you said, there he could submit a BJJ practitioner, ADCC champion, but Josh Fremd, no, this sport is crazy. I think Josh Fremd though that I was talking about confidence earlier, and if you're not getting submitted by Anthony Hernandez, who just submitted Vieira, you're probably thinking, you know what? Yeah, there's a little bit of confidence I can have on the ground now. But 10 minutes and 45 minutes of control time, 8 takedowns. It was a good performance from Hernandez. And it was a great performance from Anthony Hernandez, but the UFC thought it was Alexander Hernandez. That was the funniest thing I've seen in a while.
Yeah, the graphics team over at the UFC messed up big time. They must have had a guy that didn't know the UFC very well, because Hernandez is cemented in the lightweight division, and he thought that guy was going to fight Fremd at middleweight. That was pretty hilarious. I actually voted for Hernandez in the Bitcoin fan bonus for the 99crypto.com. He did not get the bonus, but I really hope he got something discretionary, because guy fought his heart out. And we'll move on to Aspen Ladd's loss to Raquel Pennington. This was a unanimous decision, and it was a really easy fight to score. The first 2 rounds were very much on the Pennington side. Aspen Ladd is very hittable in her fights. She always walks forward and gets tagged, and that's what Pennington did here. Even on short notice, she looked really sharp out there. And yeah, those first 2 rounds were fairly uneventful. It was just Pennington out striking her. The third round is the round where Ladd comes out and she looks really good. Ladd, historically, in fights where she struggles, she does better as the fight goes on, because she gets knocked on by her coaches to just start doing something. And remember in the Dumont fight, she got the 4th round with control time against the fence. In the Kunitskaya fight, she goes out there and knocks her down immediately, gets the ground and pound. And in this 3rd round, she gets takedown on Pennington and stays on top. So I really hope Aspen Ladd improves in her next fight, because she did not really improve in this fight. I thought she would get the takedowns and as I picked her to do, and it just didn't happen here. It's pretty disappointing as a Lat fan.
Yeah, I've got to agree. She didn't really come up to show, as you were talking about, in the first 2 rounds. Raquel Pennington was just having her way, getting the job done, landing at will, as you were talking about, the head movement from Aspen Ladd. She's always there to be hit. And I don't know what it is. She didn't seem like she, wanted it in them first 2 rounds. And then that third round, she got nagged by coaches, as you were talking about. And that's where we saw, the potential, how good Aspen Ladd can be, getting the takedown, getting a striking going, but it was just a little too late, and it was round 3, and that was it. The fight was over, and Raquel Pennington, as you talked about, cruised to victory, and definitely 2 rounds to 1. The first 2 goes to Raquel Pennington's way, and I think Raquel Pennington's on a good run of form right now, and she's definitely looking at the top 5 of the division. Aspen Ladd is probably going back to the drawing board, see what's next, but as you thought, she needs to be more active in the first 2 rounds, more aggression, more pressure, and I think she'll do quite well. But there's some things to work on. Still very young. I think she'll come back.
Yeah, I'm just happy Ladd didn't fight Aldana in this fight because I thought she would have gotten knocked out cold in that fight, quite honestly. You can't be playing those games with Aldana. Pennington has the win over Aldana. I think that rematch should be next. Moving on, Mickey Gall lost to Mike Mallet via first round KO. I don't. If they're saying this was a TKO, they're crazy. Mickey Gall face planted when he got hit with that shot, and he woke up via ground and pound. He got woken up by the follow-up ground and pound. Mike Mallet is a monster, man. The guy used to be a featherweight, and you would think he might not translate well up to welterweight. No, the guy's really tall. He's put on muscle, and he hits hard, man. Mickey Gall's never been knocked out like this in his career. He fought Diego Sanchez, got TKO'd. That was more ground and pound. This was a straight up one-hitter quitter. Mickey Gall had some good success in this fight too. He did tag Malott, but Malott knew he had the power edge. And wow, I'm really impressed by Malott here. Not only is his grappling pretty good, that the striking is really his strong suit. He's a coach at Alpha Male in striking, and he really looked good out there. And he had really amazing post-fight speech. The guy was talking about one of his coaches, their daughter was dealing with cancer. He brought awareness to that GoFundMe, and I believe they had a goal of 10,000. I believe they reached like 30,000, like 3 times their goal. Mallet has brought a lot of awareness to that. It's a really cool story, and on top of that, he had a great performance.
Yeah, fantastic. The Mallet and obviously that foundation, the fundraiser. Congratulations for reaching their goal and even surpassing it as well. And as you were talking about, fantastic performance from Mike Mallet. Knocking out Mickey Gall. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a TKO. As you talked about, he was face down. Face down, arse up. Should we say? And it was a fantastic win for Mike Mallet, a fantastic debut. I saw a lot of people were hiring him before coming into the fight, and I think he just put himself on the map in the welterweight division. As you talked about, he used to make featherweight. If you've seen the size of him, it's crazy how he used to make that. It was ridiculous. As you talked about the weight, the muscle, he's tall, he hits out a truck. Man, this guy's a good prospect in the welterweight division. I'd like to see where he goes from here. And if you're Mickey Gall now, this is he trades wins and losses, but I think this might be the first time he might have traded back-to-back losses.
Back-to-back, yeah. 2 back-to-back.
So it's a sticky situation for him. Where does Mickey Gall go from here? Does the UFC keep him on for much longer?
I don't know. I think they'll give him another shot, but a 7-5 record does not look pretty at all. We'll move on to the early prelims. Alexei Oleinik finally got that 60th win. He got the scarfold in round 1. Oleinik looked awful as he usually does on the feet, and eventually he threatens the takedown, and Vander falls him down there. He falls him down there, takes Oleinik's back. I don't know what Vander was thinking. I know he's a black belt, but let's be honest, nobody's submitting Oleinik on the ground. Not even Verdum could do it. So Oleinik reversed the position and put Vander in a nasty scarf hold. Vander was puking after the fight. His neck hurt. Oleinik is the classic example of old man strength. Got the first round submission here. 60th win. I believe it was like his 47th submission win. His like 52nd first round finish. Oleinik is a legend. He's gotten a lot of wins over legends like Crow Cop and Mark Hunt. retired Matt Brown. Olenek could have retired after this one and just had a really happy end of the career. I don't exactly think he'll have a happy end of the career, but this was a really great moment, and he was very worthy of getting that bonus.
Yeah, Joe Rogan, as you were talking about, asked him, how long are you going to fight for? And he said probably 5-10 more years. It is crazy. This guy does not age. And as you talked about, he's got his 60th win inside his MMA career. And I think it was a good performance. I think on the ground, obviously, he was, and obviously we knew that anyway, levels above Jared Vandera. And it pretty much showed. And a class of professionalism after as well. Alexei Olenek, teaching Jared Vandera, the move, that sort of how to adjust it. And I think he's just a legend, as you talked about. He's been around the game, beat some incredible guys, and he finally got his 60th win. And I don't know what to say. I think he's a good bogey fighter in the heavyweight division. If you're a prospect, I feel like you've got to go through these sort of fighters, Alexei Olenek, the Andre Arlovskis. I think he's a good fighter to have on the roster because he can always upset a prospect.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We'll move on to Pierre Rodriguez's unanimous decision victory win over Kay Hansen. I picked Rodriguez here in this fight. I knew she was the better striker. Kay Hansen has historically shown poor fight IQ. She gets stuck on her back a lot. I knew Pierre Rodriguez would not only outstrike her, but that first round did not go the way I thought it would. Hansen got a takedown, did good work, and Pierre had really high concern on the feet that she would get taken down, so her output was low. And once Pierre Rodriguez learned that she could take down Kay Hansen and hold her down, there was a revelation in her head. That's all she wanted to do after that, and she successfully did it and kept her undefeated record, moved up to 8-0. Kay Hansen probably going to be cut after this. Now it's a 7-6 record, 3-fight skid. She's very young. She's somebody that could definitely return to the UFC as a more refined fighter. I think that's the best move for her, honestly.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I think there's maybe fighting out. Was he 21 years old?
22, something like
22 years of age, yeah. So definitely, as you're talking about, definitely could return back to the UFC. But I think outside the UFC right now and developing outside the UFC, getting experience, I think that's the best option for her. But I'm about to call her Pete Rodriguez. Rodriguez got a fantastic performance. Got the job done and remains undefeated. And as you talked about, as she figured out when she could take her down, it was pretty much the ground game that got it done. The 5 minutes and 13 seconds of control time, and it was a good win. It was a good performance. A closer one probably that she wanted, but she got the job done. And the UFC debut is out the way, so that's the most important thing. And it was a fantastic performance. Her UFC debut went as expected. She got the job done, but someone who didn't is Santos. I think Daniel Santos expected to go the other way.
Yeah, Daniel Santos was the classic example of
Shuto.
I would say not only a shoot to box fighter, but a naive UFC debutant. The guy, was thinking he was going to get a quick knockout here, get Arce on his highlight reel. Arce is way too refined and experienced to get caught with something silly like Santos was throwing. If you look at Santos's accuracy, it was awful. He landed 49 out of 229 strike attempts. It's because those 229 were all shots trying to take Arce's head off. And Arce was standing at range, landing his jab. The jab stung Santos a ton of times. Santos is still young, only a 10-2 record. He can surely improve from this. And I think he should focus on the basics instead of these flashy spinning attacks that I think may cost him a lot of fights in the future. A lot of people, including myself, thought Santos might have been able to land it, but I think we were overplaying Santos getting knocked out by Song Yadong, who's a much better striker than Daniel Santos. So Julio Arce is a guy to look out for in the bantamweight division, assuming he could continue to make weight, because he did not make weight in this fight. That was a great way to kick off a night that eventually became one of the more memorable pay-per-views of 2022. I really like the card as a whole. I don't think we're forgetting this one anytime soon. Tremendous performance from Volkanovski, a controversial decision in the co-main event, and maybe the fight of the year in Shimon Burns.
100%. It was a fantastic event, and the real main event for me was obviously Hamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then it was Peter Yan versus Sterling. I was really excited. Obviously, no disrespect to Volkanovski. I think he's a fantastic fighter, but definitely after that fight, it made me realize, Volkanovski is incredible. So it made me want to see him when next time he fights, whoever it's against. It makes me want to see him even more. I feel like I've got a new level of respect, and definitely after seeing him on the MMA Hour yesterday, I think he's a likable character, and a lot of people, a lot of people are against him in the community, but I think there's nothing to really like about him. I think he's a fantastic character. He's funny, and he always comes to show, and he's one of the most technical and probably the best fighters that we have on the UFC roster right now.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt with that. And we'll move on to the UFC event this Saturday. Nope, the Bellator event this Saturday.
This Friday.
Bellator, in my opinion, has the better card. Bellator 277, headlined by maybe the most well-matched Bellator fight in Bellator history. AJ McKee versus Patricio Freire, the rematch. This fight is awesome on paper. Co-main event is Nemkov versus Anderson for the light heavyweight title. Two really legit title fights. Very much looking forward to this card on paper. It's better than the UFC's card, which is it's a very rare occasion, and that's why we're starting with Bellator 277. So let's go right into the main event. AJ McKee is having his rematch with Patricio, and McKee is undefeated, 18-0 in his last fight. He knocks out Patricio. He knocks him unconscious, but with a guillotine, chokes him unconscious. Lands a big head kick, standing guillotine, puts away Freire. It was uncompetitive, and that's how McKee predicted it would be. I don't think it'll be this easy this time around. Freire has big power in his hands, knocked out Michael Chandler. He got a guillotine on Emmanuel Sanchez in the first round in his last title defense. I think this is going to be a much tougher fight, but at the end of the day, I think McKee still gets a knockout. Also, a fourth round. I think he'll obviously he has the reach and height advantage here. I don't think he'll be as aggressive this time around because he does not want to get taken down by Freire, who's got a black belt, and also he can get open to countered if he gets too aggressive by Freire, who has ridiculous power. So I say McKee fights less aggressive, and eventually he finds the opening, and I say he lands that same head kick in that fourth round. I really think he uses his kicks well, and I think he puts away Freire, who is getting older now, and I think he'll be better suited at lightweight in the future, because let's not forget he had the belt up there at lightweight, and
now his brother has it.
Yeah, this cut to featherweight may not be as pleasant, so I think McKee keeps his belt here in the main event.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think McKee gets this one. McKee is the star boy of Bellator, so they've got to try and hang on for him as long as possible. But I know McKee's expressed it. I've talked about it before. He's expressed his interest of coming over to the UFC. He wants to jump ships. He wants to fight the best in the world. That came out of his mouth, and I think this fight against Patricio Pitbull is a fantastic fight from the rematch. As you talked about the first fight, it was pretty much domination, pretty much went all his way. And I think the second one's going to be not similar, but I think as you were talking about, not as smooth as the first one. I think he might get in trouble a little bit, but I think McKee is eventually going to pull it out. I think he's as you were talking about, he's too young, too quick. But the only thing you got to worry about with Patricio Pitbull is them counters. Them counters, man. We've seen it in the past over and over again. He can put you out, lights out with one shot. That's all it takes. But I think McKee is just, too good at getting in and out, too good at landing his punches. And you were talking about the Patricio Pitbull, he's grappling. If Patricio takes him down. But I also believe that Adrian McKee is really good off his back. We've seen it in the past against Darren Caldwell when he hits that. I forgot what he called it.
McKee.
There we go. He hit that, and I feel like he's got enough tools in his arsenal to be able to withstand him on the grappling on the ground. But I think this fight is going to take place on the feet. I think we're going to see a striking matchup, and I think McKee's going to get the best of him. I think we're going to see another McKee knockout. I do agree.
I gotta agree with you there. Co-main event: Vadim Nemkov defending versus Corey Anderson. I really think that somebody's going to get knocked out in this fight. Nemkov in his last fight, he fought a guy on short notice. I can't. The name is escaping me at this moment right now. And Nemkov's last opponent
Oh,
starts with a V, I believe. Uh, it was an alternate in the tournament, and he got rocked. He got rocked. He got put on skates. So Nemkov, I would say he's very susceptible to get. He's vulnerable to those knockout punches. In fact, Yuri Prohaska was able to put him away in the past. But Corey Anderson, not exactly. He's never been the cleanest striker out there, but you can always say he's got the big power. Knocked out Ryan Bader in this tournament. He was able to beat he was able to
Phil
knock out
Davis.
Doug Walker, stop that hype train. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Anderson was on a good run before he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. But at the end of the day, Anderson has always been a chinny fighter, in my opinion. Always been knocked out by Jean Vellante. He got hurt bad by Shogun in this fight. He's always been open to get knocked out. I think Nemkov knocks him out. I'll say second round here. Nemkov has the quicker hands, more refined striker, and a lot of people are talking about how do they match up wrestling wise. Nemkov has a sambo background. I think Anderson maybe gets himself a takedown. I think Nemkov could find his way to the feet and hurt Anderson bad. I don't think Nemkov will wrestle in this fight, but he'll do it defensively just so he can knock out Anderson here.
Yeah, Vadim Nekov did fight Julius Inglickus, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah, and as you tell you, he got put on skates in that one, and I just don't see the same threat in this one as you were talking about. Corey Anderson, not been known for his striking, but I did say before we went on air, it's looking better as of late. He's been getting them knockouts. I can't remember off the top of my head who his last fight was where he knocked him out. There we go, Ryan Bader. There you knocked out Ryan Bader. It was in the first minute or something like that, and it was a fantastic performance. And but I just don't see that happening. I think Vadim Nemkov is a different type of animal. As you were talking about the grappling, I think the grappling. I think they're going to cancel each other out. Maybe Anderson will be able to take down Nemkov, but I think Nemkov can keep this fight standing, and I think he's the best striker as you were talking about. He's quicker. I just see him being more sharper, and I think he's going to knock out Corey Anderson. I just don't see. In a world where Corey Anderson wins this one, unless he gets a knockout, or he gets a submission, but I just don't see him being able to get Nemkov down and be able to hold him down.
This is not the same matchup, but it's kind of similar. This kind of reminds me of Overeem versus Rosenstrike. Even though Overeem dominated the whole fight with the wrestling, it didn't matter because Overeem's always been chinny, and he got knocked out with like 10 seconds left. So I would not recommend betting on Anderson as an underdog because he may be dominating, but he may just get knocked out in the last 10 seconds of the fight. You'll never know. And we'll move on to the return of Aaron Pico versus Edwards. Aaron Pico has always been a prospect that's interested me. I would say one of the best wrestlers in all of MMA. And he's got huge knockout power. Sure, watching him get knocked out in the past has been tough to watch, but now he's got momentum back on his side. I think he gets himself another knockout in the second round here in this spot. I don't believe Edwards has much to offer him in terms of a ground game and on the feet. I really think Pico just has a really great way of threatening people with his wrestling and finding huge punches like the overhand right. I think he can knock out Edwards.
Yeah, I've got to agree. The reason why, as you were talking about, why Pico gets all these knockouts because the opponents that he's facing are so scared of his wrestling, so they're not expecting for him to throw as much hands at, especially with the power he has. It's ridiculous. We have seen him get knocked out in the past, but that's when he's been fighting silly. He's not been fighting with the right mentality. He's not been fighting with the right IQ. But since moving, I can't remember what Jimmy's moved to, but since moving, he's looked like a different fight. He's used his wrestling, and he's looked like a different fighter. And off the top of my head, I'm not too sure who Edwards is. But obviously Pico, he's a fantastic prospect. But if I'm looking at this, I think Pico's got, I think he's got it in the bag. I think he's got the heavy hands. He's got that grappling in his pocket as well. One of the best wrestlers, as you talked about, that we've seen inside MMA. And I think he's a good prospect over in Bellator. But it's a tough one for me to pick because I don't really know who Edwards is. But if I'm looking at this on paper, I'll go with Aaron Pico.
Yeah, and Bellator historically does a good job of matching up their prospects well. They're not gonna Darren Till, Tyron Woodley a guy. So yeah, Tim Johnson is the next fight. He's fighting Lyndon Vassell
Yes.
in this spot. I love Tim Johnson. Always comes to fight. Uh, he's a killer, be killed guy these days. He did get knocked out by Fedor recently, but that's Fedor, man, one of the greats. I don't know exactly who to pick in this fight because Tim Johnson, obviously, he's regressing as a fighter. Vassell actually has more experience, but I don't think he's as long as in the tooth as Johnson is, quite honestly. So it's a tough one for me to pick. I think I'll go with Vassell. I'll say second round TKO.
I mean, my guy, Lennon. We're from the same city over in England. Lennon Vassell, we talk all the time. He's one of my good friends. And I mean, it's great to see him doing his thing over in America, shining. And against Tim Johnson as well, a former title challenger in Bellator. And obviously, Lennon Vassell, he was a former title challenger in Bellator as well. So it's going to be a good, interesting matchup. Lennon Vassell, since moving up to heavyweight, he's looked different. He hasn't got to cut down to 205 pounds anymore.
Yeah.
And he's just looked changed. But he's the smaller size of heavyweight. He weighs in about 240, but he doesn't look it. When you see him, when he's fighting, he looks massive, he looks big, and he's just full of muscle. This guy is huge. And I think when Lyndon Vassell gets on top of any fighter, I think it's trouble. His pressure, his submission threat, there's one thing about Lyndon Vassell. When he gets on top of you, there's one position that he's looking for. He wants to get you flattened out as soon as possible. And if you let Lyndon Vassell flatten you out, it's game over. We've seen that in against Karatonov, and then in his last fight against Tyron Fortune, and then so he's beat some good fighters, and I think Lyndon Vassell is going to get it done. Not just because he's my friend, but I think he's the better fighter. Striking wise, though, I think Tim Johnson, obviously the better striker, but I think Lyndon Vassell is going to be able to keep the stand. Although Lyndon Vassell in his last fight against Fortune, he did look much better on the feet. That left high kick, by the way, that left high kick is beautiful. He loves to set up his wrestling with that left high kick. So definitely watch out for that. I think Lyndon Vassell is going to get this one to the ground, and I think he's going to ground and pound him within the first few rounds. I think the second round is where we're at. I think Lyndon Vassell is going to get another finish, and he'll be in the top three at least next. Surely, Bellator definitely needs to put that in. I think he's going to get a title shot soon.
I agree with you. I don't think it'll be too different from the Sergey Karatonov fight, quite honestly. And we'll move on to the prelims. Taro Fortune, just talking about him, he's fighting Cleveland in this fight. I think this is a really good matchup for Fortune. Fortune is also has a wrestling background. He's got good ground and pound on the feet. He's got big power too. And I think Fortune gets a first round TKO here. I think this is kind of a setup spot here. They're giving him a guy with not the best record, but with a lot of experience. I think Fortune is obviously the better wrestler. He'll be able to find a finish here.
Yeah. So Tyron Fortune was meant to fight Steve Mowry, who's Lyndon Vassell's training partner. It was meant to be Tyron Fortune versus Tim Johnson, I believe, and then they switched it around. So now Tyron Fortune is now facing Cleveland, but Cleveland stepped in at short notice. Tyron Fortune was scheduled to face Steve Mowry, but Steve Mowry had to drop out of the fight. But as you talked about, a favorable matchup stepped in, and I think Cleveland actually did fight Steve Mowry in his last fight, so he's not been handed the best of luck of inside the Bellator. He's, two prospects, and I think he's going to fall in the hands of another defeat. I think Tyron Fortune is just a better fighter. And I think that's plain simple. I think there's two more fights that we could probably talk about on here. That's the Rafael Carvalho versus, I don't even want to say that one, and then Kyle Kuchma. I think that one there.
Davlet Yagshimuradov in his Bellator debut, he fought Corey Anderson. That's not an easy ask for pretty much anybody. He did lose the fight. Anderson was simply the better wrestler, but that's not a case that Davlet finds himself in often, because usually he's able to out-wrestle his opponents. He's fighting Rafael Carvalho, he's been around the block, man. He's been around since the earlier days of MMA. Fought guys like Melvin Manhoef, knocked him out. He beat Chidi and Joe Kawani, but he's lost. Let me look at here. He's lost 5 of his last 6. Yeah, 5 of his last 6 he lost. He's not in a good form right now. Obviously regressing. Davlet, on the other hand, is improving. I think Davlet gets a unanimous decision in this fight. I think he's the better wrestler. Obviously, there is a power threat from Caballo, but I think that Davila will just keep this on the ground most of the time.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I think this is a good fight for Davila. I think it's a good fight. And as you talk about, he lost against Corey Anderson, and then he fought who's that guy with the curly hair? Carl.
Ooh,
He's got curly hair. He's fought Yuri Prochaska. Oh God, I forgot his name. It's gone out of my head.
It's a tough one.
Carl Albekterson. There you go.
Oh yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah,
he's got curly hair. Fought Yuri Prochaska and Ryzen. But yeah, I think Dovashen is going to get this one done. I think he's going to get his first win inside inside Bellator. And if you talk about Rafael Carvalho, you know, he as you talked about, 5 of his last 6 he's lost. And that only win was against Chidi Ndukwani, who's now inside the UFC, and he got a fantastic knockout in the last few months. So just shows this MMA game is unpredictable. So this one's going to be probably a hard one to choose, but I'm going to go with Dovashen. I think he's going to get this one done, and a fantastic fight nonetheless. And I think there's one more we could probably talk about is Carl Crutchmer versus Michael Lombardo. I think that's one. We've also got Gracie on the card, who's 0-3.
Yeah, Lombardo follows me on Instagram regularly, looks at my stories. He was on a Contender Series. He dominated his opponent, but he was not aggressive. So Dana said he's just not a good fit for us. So now he fought in the PFL, had success on the PFL, and now he's in Bellator. He's fighting Kyle Crutchmer, who's from AKA, and I think it's gonna come down to who's the better wrestler and who's more threatening on the feet. It's tough to say, honestly. It really is. Lombardo's only lost in his last several is Kyle Dawkins. I think I'll side with Crutchmer here. I think Crutchmer gets a close split decision. Do you agree?
I do agree. And if you look, Carl Crutchmer's only loss in his MMA career was against Cameron. What's that? He fought on the Ultimate Fighter. Cameron Lakinov, I think it was scheduled. The crazy guy who makes when he gets hot, when he gets hit, he makes noises and he growls. There we go. When he gets punches, he actually growls at his opponent. He's such a funny watch. Honestly, if you haven't seen that, it's ridiculous. But yeah, his only losses against Cameron, and in his last fight, he beat Oliver Enkamp, who also fought in the UFC. A few fights back, and I think this is a good fight for Michael Lombardo, as you mentioned. But I'm favouring Carl Crutchmer. I think he's going to get it done. I think this is a good fight for Carl Crutchmer, and I think this is a good fight for Bellator on the prelims. And the rest are not too great, not really much to talk about. As I talked about
prospect fights.
Yeah, I said we had a Gracie, but the Gracie's 0-3, and I don't really know much about that Gracie.
Yeah. It's the rest is prospect fights, but the top part of the card is really strong, stronger than UFC's. But that doesn't mean the UFC doesn't have a fantastic main event for us. A fight in the top 10 of the UFC's welterweight division. UFC Vegas 52. We're back in the UFC Apex. Unfortunately, kind of a bummer. It's going to be hard to go back to, but I think these fights will be exciting enough for us to really be entertained. Vicente Luque knocked out Bilal Muhammad in the prelims at UFC 205. If you remember, that was the first Madison Square Garden card for the UFC. Conor McGregor became champ that night. That seems like a long time ago, and both guys have evolved so much as fighters since then, and both guys have been on huge streaks recently. Bilal Muhammad in his last fight ragdolled Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and before that, he retired the legend Damian Maia. Muhammad is in fantastic form right now. I am kind of rooting him in my heart, but I'm also a bigger Vicente Luque fan. Bilal actually trains 30 minutes from where I live here in Illinois. But I don't think he has a skill set to beat Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque is a monster. I think he's already a UFC legend. This guy has a ton of finishes on his record, never in a boring fight. And I think he will finish Bilal here. Bilal has not faced a guy with this kind of dangerous power in a while. Stephen Thompson, of course, does have a lot of power in his kicks. not necessarily a power puncher. MMAUnhinged obviously only a threat on the ground. And before that, before that he fought Leon Edwards, no contest. Before that he fought Diego Lima, not a great fight, where he was going to get rocked. In a Lehman good fight, he loses the third round. He gets rocked. And if you remember Bilal Muhammad's early UFC career, where he was less experienced, I think this is going to look more like those early fights, because in the Alan Jouban fight, he took it on short notice. That was a beating, man, a straight up beating. There was a 10-8 round in that fight. Jouban pieced up Muhammad. And in the Jeff Neal fight, more of the same, just a huge beating. But you can tell that Muhammad has done better defensively because he's not getting knocked out clean like he did against Luque. But at the end of the day, I think Luque will rock Bilal several times in this fight, and Bilal has relied on his wrestling a lot. I think he'll shoot for a desperation takedown after getting rocked and find himself in that Darce choke. That's Luque's favorite submission. That's how he beat Woodley. He's gotten a lot of guys in it tight. Many times he submitted Chiesa with it. I think he submits Bilal Muhammad in the third round.
Yeah, I've got to agree. If you look at his matchup on paper, Vicente Luque had his number once, and I think he's going to have his number twice. I think he's going to finish him, as you talked about. I think the Darce choke, the Anaconda choke. I think they're all good submissions for Vicente Luque. I think he's going to have his number. Bilal Muhammad, as you talked about, he's been in good form as of late. The confidence is probably really high, but I think this is where that road is going to stop. I think Vicente Luque is going to finish him, and the submission is going to be the end of the story in this one. I think as you're talking about the Darce choke is the good submission to probably go for, as you talked about. It's his favorite submission. The Darce chokes and the Anacondas. But yeah, this is a fantastic main event. I'm very looking forward to it, and I think it's the rematch. 6 years in the making, the rematch. So Vicente Luque is going to get the job done. And I think after this one, I think it's going to be a big fight for him in the top 5. Maybe Gilbert Burns. Oh, wait, I was about to say Gilbert Burns, but I believe they train together.
Yeah, Bilal Muhammad, not a power puncher. Luque is a power puncher. I think that's the big difference maker. Bilal Muhammad is not some D1 wrestler that's going to dominate Luque here. Even if he was, you got to watch out for that submission threat. Chiesa, better wrestler than Muhammad, got stuck in that submission. I think Luque might be a fight away from the title shot after he submits Bilal Muhammad this weekend in the third round. It's going to be an all-action fight nonetheless. Probably going to get the fight of the night bonus. And now we go to the next fight on the card. I will not call this a co-main event because, let's be honest, the vast majority of the UFC fans do not know these guys. They came off a Contender Series, and that is
the co-main event in my eyes.
Yeah, there we go. There's the co-main event. They go by is Andre Fialho, but nonetheless, let's talk about Caio Borralho versus Omar Gadziev. Okay, Omar Gadziev is a monster. He was one of the MVPs of the Contender Series last year. He got a first-round leg lock. He looked fantastic in that fight. The guy is a grappling machine. He'll take you down. He'll land the heavy ground pound. He'll chase the submissions, and he's more creative than most, I would say. And he's pretty big for the middleweight division. He does have a shorter reach, though, and he can switch stance freely. But this is a much tougher fight than his Contender Series fight. His Contender Series fight was a fight that he could easily win. This is not the case here. He's only a slight favorite, minus 140. He's fighting Caio Borralho. Borralho was the MVP of the Contender Series this last year. Not only did he won his first Contender Series fight, he beat the name is slipping me right now. It was a Canadian who had a really good resume, had beaten
Aaron Jeffrey.
Yeah, Aaron Jeffrey. Really good guy, man. He beat him, stuffed all his takedowns, outboxed him on the feet, and then he goes up a weight class. He goes to light heavyweight. That's not his weight class. And he fights a guy with like a 10-1 record, and he goes out there and knocks him out in the first round, up a weight class, on short notice. That is super impressive. But here's the deal. None of those guys are the caliber of Omar Gadziev. Borralho's got really good takedown defense. That's no lie. But I do believe that Omar Gadziev can get takedowns in at least 2 of the 3 rounds and get enough control time, similar to Madsen versus Michelle last week. And I think Omar Gadziev can get a decision here.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think Omar Gadziev is, as we talk about the wrestling, the takedown actually as well. You can see it 100%. It's phenomenal. You talked about his grappling, how good he is. If you look at the opponent, Borrello, he fought in a submission grappling and a fight against Almeida. What's his first name?
Ricardo?
Is it Jolton Almeida?
Jolton, yes.
Jolton, you're super high on that guy, and he's you talked about how good his grappling is, and he's gone to decision with him. So if you look at that, it shows that he's got that decision, he's got that grappling defense. But I think Omar Gadziev is, as you talked about, he's huge for the division. 6'1" against 5'10". 185 pounds at middleweight, is good, and I think Omar Gadziev is going to show how good he is grappling wise against Borrello. But this is a good fight. Co-main event worthy though? I'm not sure. There's two Dana White contending series guys, and I know they like to push them, but this is their debut and they're in the co-main event of a fight night. I'm not too sure, and I think there's a better fight below them that should be on the co-main event.
I completely agree with you. Andre Fialho in his UFC debut, he fought it on short notice on the main card of UFC 270, and he had to fight Michel Pereira. Pereira's a monster, really high output, very dangerous everywhere, and he won that first round. He rocked him, and after that, he kind of blew his wad. In the second round, Michel Pereira started putting a beating on him, rocked him, and I really believe if he did not go for the flying knees or the really, outlandish attacks, I think he could have finished him if he just went out there and started throwing some hooks at him and put him away. But that was not the case. Pereira got a little greedy there. And that's something that I don't think Bieza will do. Bieza, obviously, a really great boxer, black belt in jiu-jitsu, maybe one of the best calf kickers in the welterweight division. And he's still young. He has it all, but in his last two, he underperformed. In the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, he got tired. He got clipped many times. It was a war. It could have gone either way. Nothing wrong with that, really, honestly. Ponzinibbio was once on a 7-fight win streak, so no shame. After that, he fights Chaos Williams, and that first round was razor close because both guys rocked each other. So in the third round, he goes for the calf kick, gets countered with a big punch.
Yeah.
No shame in that. Getting knocked out by Chaos Williams. So he's only lost to really good guys. Before that, he had submitted Takashi Sato, knocked out Matt Brown. This fight against Fialho, I think he can knock out Fialho. I think this is going to be a war until one guy goes down. And I think that guy going down will be Fialho. Not exactly fought great competition outside of the UFC, despite he fighting like UFC level guys. A knockout over James Vick, kind of a free win at this point. So I say Baeza wins this, but it is kind of a concern that Baeza did get rocked in his last several fights. So Fialho could be live here for a knockout, but I'll side with Baeza. I'll say it's second round TKO.
This is a fantastic fight, and as we were talking about, I believe this should be the co-main event. A fantastic fight. I think this is going to be a banger. I think it's going to be. I think they're going to go to war. They're going to trade punches, and I think whoever's going to connect is going to get knocked out. And I believe Andre Fialho is going to be the one who's going to be connecting and knocking out Miguel Baeza. I like it. This possibly quite be. But I see Andre Fialho being able to have good success inside the clinch, inside the dotted boxing range. I think that's what he's going to live for. He had good success against Michel Pereira, but he stepped to the short notice. His cardio didn't look good, and I think we're going to see the full potential again for Andre Fialho in this one. A full camp. He's going to look. I think he's going to look great. He's going to show what he's really made of. And even though he lost against Michel Pereira, I think it was a great performance. And he showed what he's really about. He showed his durability. I think he could take punches. And I believe that Andre Fialho is just going to take him to like the later stages of the fight into a dirty fight, a dog fight, and I think even Miguel Pierre is not going to get clipped, and I think he's going to get the ground and pound finish. And I don't think he has the power to knock him out unconscious, out cold, one punch, but I think it might be a combination punch and maybe a TKO finish. But I fancy Andre Fiallo in this fight.
Yeah, that's a very exciting fight and another potential fight night contender. Either way, I think the winner walks away with a bonus here. And move on to the next fight, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Wu Yanan. I think this does not belong on any main card. Bueno Silva is a really exciting fighter, but Wu Yanan is it's unbelievable the competition she's fought. It's been frighteningly low, honestly. The opponents that she's lost to are 1-8 in the UFC, I believe. She lost to Jocelyn Edwards, lost to Mizuki Inoue, and lost to Gina Mazzani. Those are not good losses. Her only win is a first-round armbar over Lauren Mueller, who is now not with the promotion. Outside of the UFC, she fought 0-0, 0-3, 0-1, 0-0, 0-0, 0-2, and straight up 0-0s. She's a can crusher. Let's be blunt here. So against Mayra Bueno Silva, who is super hittable, but she is always down for a fist fight, and she's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She submitted Jillian Robertson. I think Bueno Silva's obviously the better fighter here, but it is a concern that she's maybe the most hittable fighter in the whole division. But I will side with Bueno Silva here. She is the big favorite for a reason. I just think Yanan has a very limited skill set. Like, I don't think she's a significant threat really anywhere, honestly. So I think Bueno Silva wins a unanimous decision in this fight. If it hits the ground, we will see Bueno Silva wrapping up an armbar, but she hasn't shot for a single takedown, which is crazy because she's one of the best grapplers in the division, but she doesn't go for takedowns. It's absolute madness, and it's an example of her poor fight IQ. So I don't think you should be betting on either fighter here, but I will pick Bueno Silva.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think Bruno Silva is definitely the better fighter. If you look at the odds, I think that's justified. And as you were talking about Yanan Wu, the records of the women that she has fought, it's not great. But yeah, I think Bruno Silva is good. Definitely, you talked about her grappling, and if you talk about her last fight against Mano Flori, she went to a decision with as good as a striker as Mano Flori is, who's finished some of the women in the division. If you're looking at that, it's confidence, but as you talked about, she gets hit way too much. But I just don't see that happening in this fight. I think Yanan Wu just doesn't have that threat, doesn't have that, being able to cause any trouble for Bruno Silva. I think, as you talked about, Bruno Silva has never initiated, the grappling, but I believe in this fight she'll initiate grappling, and I think she's going to get the submission win. And I like, if you look at her record, she likes the armbar, so maybe she'll get an armbar win. But I'm not going to choose the submission, but I think it's going to be a submission win for Bruno Silva.
All right, and move on to the next fight. Pat Sabatini versus TJ Lorraine. Sabatini's on a 3-fight winning streak. He was one of the most impressive prospects of 2021. In his first UFC fight, he goes out there, dominates Tristan O'Connell, fresh off the Michelle Pajeda win. And after that, he fights Jamal Emmers, gets knocked down, and then nearly tears Emmers' leg off with a leg lock. Then after that, he fights Tucker Lutz, who was on a 10-fight win streak, and he dominates him with wrestling. Sabatini has a really good skill set. He's got good boxing, and on the ground, he has excellent top control and really good submission offense. TJ Lorraine, on the other hand, is a guy that fought on the Contender Series. He got a doctor, was it like a
rib injury,
TKO with body shots. He's got good power in his hands, but the grappling defense is a problem for Lorraine. And his UFC debut, he fights Derek Minner, and he gets submitted by a guillotine in a minute. Lorraine is actually mainly a wrestler, but it's just not going to work against Pat Sabatini. I think Tucker Lutz was a better wrestler than Sabatini. Not only that, Tucker Lutz was bigger than Lorraine. So I think Sabatini can probably win this fight anywhere, but I do think he takes it to the ground and finds a submission on Laramie here fairly quickly. I'll say first round. I'll say like 4 minutes in the first round. I think we see Laramie tapping out. I'm not sure Laramie's UFC caliber. I'm sure that Sabatini is. I think we see Sabatini not too far from a top 15 fight.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I like Pat Sabatini as also in this fight. I'm not going to pick a submission though. I think it's going to be a decision. I think he's going to be able to control him on the ground. To get that control time. As you talked about Laramie, he's also a wrestler. But I don't like him in this fight. I think he's getting outmatched on the ground. The wrestling of Pat Sabatini, we've seen it in the past. Maybe a submission does creep in there, but I think Laramie will just do enough just to be able to survive in this one. He did get submitted by Derek, as you talked about Derek Minner in his last fight. But Derek Minner, he's a decent black belt. Done well against Ryan Hall in his last fight. So there's probably some confidence for TJ in this fight. But I think Pat Sabatini is just I don't know. I just like him in this fight. I think he's a different animal on the ground. I think the wrestling exchanges are going to be good. I think the scrambles are going to be really good. But I think Sabatini is going to be able to hold him down. Maybe look for a submission. But I'm going to go for a decision this one. I think it's going to go all 15.
Yeah, I think TJ Laramie is the better striker. He beat Charles Jourdain. He went to a split decision with Murdoch, the guy who was on Contender Series. I think Laramie could potentially knock down Sabatini. He did get knocked out by Jamal Emmers, but I really like Sabatini's submission ability and top control. I think he'll get the submission in this fight if he looks for it.
This fight is
and
not happening.
We'll move on to the opener. It is no longer Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. He has pulled out of the fight due to personal reasons, and he's being replaced by Sanford MMA product Andre Lusa. Andre Lusa has sparred many rounds with Kamaru Usman. He was on the Contender Series, and he fought Jack Della Maddalena, and they had the best fight of the entire season. It was a back and forth war. Eventually, Della Maddalena was just landing the heavier shots, and he had the better cardio, so he won it. But I was super impressed with Lusa, even in defeat. I knew he would get in the UFC eventually. He fought on an ex-MMA card, was it last weekend? And he got the win in that fight. Unanimous decision. He's got really good leg kicks, big power in his hands and his kicks. The ground game, it's really nothing to speak of. But he's fighting a guy Manil Lazzez, who is a really impressive kickboxer, flashy attacks, but he's not excessive with them. In his UFC debut, he fought Abdul Razak Hassan, who had not fought in years, who is only a first round KO guy, and he survived that storm. Lazzez has a granite chin, and he has unbelievable heart. And after Abdul Razak Hassan got tired, he put a beating on Abdul Razak Hassan. It was the fight of the night. I was super impressed with Lazzez, and he's just been very inactive since then. He only fought once since then, and he fought Warley Alves. He was a huge favorite against Warley Alves. It was a co-main event, and he gets caught with a body kick from hell. And he caught the body kick. He blocked it with his elbows, and his elbows went right into his ribs. So the guy went down, and that was a really tough spot. I think that only happens, I would say, 2 out of 10 times. I thought that was like a freak show. I still think Lazzez would win that fight if they do a rematch. But he's fighting Angel Lusa, who doesn't have good cardio to begin with, and this is on short notice. I think Lazzez wins here. I think he wins fairly convincingly. I think this is going to be a super exciting fight, and Lazzez will hurt him many times, and I think we could see Lusa hurt Lazzez here. But when it comes down to it, I think Lazzez has the much higher output. That will be a difference maker, and he'll get a split decision win here. I think this is going to be a tough fight for both guys.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. Other than the split decision, I'm going to unanimous decision. I'm going to go Munir Lazzez. As you talked about the kickboxing, as we talked about in his UFC debut, Abdul Razak Hassan, knocking people out in round 1 and being able to stop that that train, and then he came up against Muller Alves where he said he got that body kick from hell. went down, and that was that was it. That was the end of the fight, and it was a big moment for him because it was the co-main event, a big fight, and maybe the confidence is a little bit down, but I believe in this fight he's going to be able to put on a good performance against Ange Lusa in this one. So it's going to be a good fight. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm glad Muno Lazez is still on the card because it's a fantastic fighter.
Yeah, I've been patiently waiting to see Munir return to action. The guy is one of the most entertaining fighters in the welterweight division, and this fight will be fireworks, I guarantee it. And now let's go to the prelims. Devin Clark versus William Knight. I think this is a great fight for Devin Clark. This fight is actually it says it's at light heavyweight, but I'm pretty sure this is at heavyweight. If I'm not, I originally saw it reported at heavyweight, and
I believe
this
so.
is a short notice fight for William Knight. Remember William Knight's last fight? It was a short notice light heavyweight fight. Misses the mark by a record, like 22 pounds, something like that. William Knight will not make this if this is a light heavyweight fight. So it is a heavyweight fight.
Yeah, it came in at 218.
Yeah. Devin Clark is a great wrestler. He's got power in his hands. And he's fighting William Knight, who is just a powerhouse. Hits like a truck. I think this is a great fight for Devin Clark. He already beat Alonzo Menifield, which I think Alonzo Menifield might be a better version of William Knight. I think he beat William Knight when they fought. I think Alonzo Menifield might actually have a better gas tank too. So I will side for Devin Clark here. I think this is just going to be wrestling domination. It will not be an exciting fight. We might see William crack him, but we see a Devin Clark fight. The Hulky Wankutalaba got knocked down. The guy is tough as nails, and he actually won the third round with loose teeth out of his mouth, man. The guy is a savage. I don't think William Knight has the skill set at all to hang with him. I think if William Knight got dominated by Dong Jung with wrestling, imagine what Devin Clark does to him. I think this will be a boring fight. Shout out to Wipeout MMA saying we're crushing it. I think Devin Clark dominates him, gets multiple 10-8 rounds. Unanimous decision for Devin Clark. That's just what I see.
I mean, I got to agree with you. I think you put it on there on the head there with that Alonzo Menfield, comment. I think Alonzo Menfield, William Knight is you're pretty much looking in the mirror when you're looking at these two. So it's a good matchup for Devin Clark as you talked about, and I think that the wrestling is going to be the key factor. But I also like William Knight having this fight at heavyweight, as you talked about his last fight, missing that light heavyweight by 12 pounds. He came in at 218 pounds, so that's ridiculous. But now this one's at heavyweight. He hasn't got to worry about that cut. He hasn't got to worry. So it's freedom. But I'm actually quite scared to how heavy he comes in. I don't know what he walks around in. I'm going to say maybe 230 plus. I would say 100%. So I mean that weight difference is probably going to be massive between these two when it comes to fight night or fight day. Devin Clark, I'd probably guess, walks around probably 220, high end 220. So I feel like it's going to be massive. You're going to really see the full size of William Knight in this one. I think Devin Clark, I think the wrestling is just going to be too much for William Knight, as you talked about. I think he's going to hold him down and put him in positions that are very uncomfortable. And maybe get even a ground and pound finish. Maybe I like a ground and pound finish in this one. But I think William Knight is taking this one at short notice is probably not the best idea. Definitely probably would like to have this one at full camp, probably at 205 pounds as well. But if you're William Knight, you're probably happy that it's not 205 pounds because you haven't got that weight cut. So Devin Clark, though, I like this one. Devin Clark going to go for unanimous decision as well. Wrestling is going to be the key in this one. So I think he's going to get a job done via wrestling. So I think it's going to be 15 minutes of domination.
All right. The next fight is a rematch. Some people don't know this, but these two ladies already fought each other, Lena Landsberg and Penny Kianzad. Lena Landsberg, in her pro MMA debut, she fought Penny Kianzad. She lost the fight. I'm looking at Tapology right now. It does not say the method of in which she lost the fight. I'm going to assume it was the decision. And since then, the Queen of Elbows, Lena Landsberg, she's got wins over Lucy Pudilova, Gina Mazzani, Tonya Evinger, and she beat Macy Chiasson when Macy Chiasson was fresh off the Ultimate Fighter and she was undefeated at 5-0. So besides that, she's got losses: Sarah McMahon, Yana Kuniskaya, Aspen Ladd, Chris Cyborg. No shame in those losses, man. So the Queen of Elbows, she's coming off a pregnancy. She's now 40. This is a spot where I have to bet on Penny Kianzad. Penny Kianzad, even though she was very competitive in the Pennington fight, she did lose that one. And before that, she beat Alexis Davis. That was a very close fight. I think Penny Kianzad is one of the best boxers in women's MMA, quite honestly. And Landsberg, off that huge layoff, she's the older fighter. I'm gonna side with Penny Kianzad here. I think she wins a decision here. I just don't like Landsberg coming off a layoff here and being a much older fighter.
Yeah, this is a good fight. Sweden versus Sweden in this one.
Yep.
Penny Kianzad, originally born in Iran, but yeah, she moved to Sweden, and now it's Swedish versus Swedish fight. This is a good fight. As you talked about, Penny Kianzad is a fantastic boxer, and as you talked about, Lena Landsberg coming off, the pregnancy, her first fight since 2020, I want to say. But yeah, this is a long layoff, so she's going to be rusty. Piana Kianzad is, if you look at who she last fought in the last fight, as you talked about, Raquel Pennington, fought in 2021, the later stages of 2021. So she's been more active. And I think that's going to be the really difference maker in this one. She's touched the canvas most recently, and I think this is going to be a massive factor. And she's also fought the better competition as of late as well. So I think Piana Kianzad is going to get this one done, and I like the decision win. As I always talk about, I never bet on a finish unless it's the big ones at the top.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. And also, she's got the mental advantage, already having beaten her. And we'll move on to Jakar Close finally coming back versus Brandon Jenkins. Jakar Close's last fight was one of the last UFC fights before the COVID-19 pandemic started. It's been forever. In that fight against Beneil Dariush was a fantastic fight. Beneil got his back for the majority of the first round. But in that second round, Beneil Dariush, currently ranked at number 3 or number 4 right now in the lightweight division, he had him on skates. He was on the verge of knocking out a top 5 guy right now. And he himself got cracked. He got walked down. And he got straight up slept by Beneil Dariush. That was an amazing moment. One of the craziest comebacks in UFC history. And a year after that, in 2021, in April, he's booked to fight Jeremy Stevens. The guys face off after the weigh-ins. He gets shoved, and he gets concussed by a shove. That is crazy. I still can't believe it, honestly. So I do have questions about Close's durability. Not only did he get knocked out by Beneil, who I wouldn't say is the hardest punch of the division, a shove was able to concuss this guy. So it's tough, and you can tell the fact that he's down a weight class now. This is actually never mind. This is not him changing weight classes. Close said he would go down to featherweight eventually, but I don't think that's a good move. This is at lightweight. He's fighting Brandon Jenkins. Brandon Jenkins, I really don't think is UFC caliber. He got his UFC debut on short notice. He was fresh off of the PFL, got a flying knee KO on the PFL, and then he signed on and he fought Rong Zhu. He got dominated in that fight. He got ground and pounded in the third round. In the PFL, the guy he beat was Jacob Kilborn, UFC vet. He's lost to Mike Breeden via flying knee himself. I really don't think he has a great skill set. Like his punches aren't the most powerful. His ground game leaves a ton to be desired. I just think he's a guy who's probably not cut out for the UFC. And Jakar Close 100% is, as I just said, almost beat a top 5 guy in his last fight. And before that, he was on a really impressive run. Close was one of these prospects I was looking at that could be in the top 15 for a while. That's how highly I thought of him. He beat guys like Giagos, Bobby Green, Lando Veneta, Mark Casey. I was really high on this guy at one point. Um, so it's tough to see him be on such a long layoff. So I think Close is one of the best bets on the whole card. I think he knocks out Jenkins in the second round here. The only thing that is concerning is the long layoff, the fact that he got concussed by a shove.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. And this is a good fight. On the prelims, Jack and Close, as you talked about, finally returning back after that. After that war against Benil Dariush, and coming close, as you talked about, and now Benil Dariush, top 3, top 4 in the world at lightweight. And if you're a top 3, top 4 at lightweight, you're doing something right. It's a Shark Tank. So Jack and Close is probably, although he lost his last fight and he got knocked out, he's probably thinking, you know what, it was against Benil Dariush. He's top 4 in the world. There's no shame in that loss. There's no, he's probably walking to this with a little bit of confidence. I would probably say, and against Jenkins as well. I got to agree with you. I think this is a good matchup for Jack and Close. It's a favourable matchup, and I think he could get the job done. I think he's going to stop him, and I like a KO finish in here. But he's got what he's going to learn from against the Benil Dariush's fight. He can't get overzealous. He's got to pick his shots and take his time, and I think he's not going to make that mistake again. And I think he's going to get the job done. But I think he's going to knock him out, and he's going to get his hand raised and finally returning to the UFC after a long time. And I'd like to see him get in the win column, and I think he will do.
All right, we'll move on to the next fight: Rafa Garcia versus Jesse Ronson. I think this is a really fun fight. Jesse Ronson is a really interesting case. The guy had an initial UFC run where he went 0-3, but he got fed to the Sharks. He fought Michel Prazeres, Francisco Trinaldo, and Kevin Lee, and he lost all of those fights via split decision. You have to feel bad for the guy. He came in 12-2, and then eventually he goes on a decent run outside of the UFC, where he starts finishing guys a lot, and all those guys had winning records. And then he goes to the PFL, loses to Natan Schultz and Nikolai Alexeshkin, and then he gets another finish. And then he finds himself in the UFC on short notice, up a weight class at welterweight against Nicholas Dalby. Dalby's a huge favorite. You and I, we were so confident that Dalby would just steamroll him. That was not the case. Ronson, when he was outside of the UFC, he got on those special vitamins, if you know what I mean. And he came into the UFC, roided up, knocks down Nicholas Dalby, and chokes him until Dalby taps. That was crazy. Ronson was super undersized, but the guy has undoubtable power, and he's got decent submission offense. Now he's back at his natural weight class, hopefully off of the roids, and he's fighting Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia had a great UFC debut. He fought Nasrat Haqparast, hurt him, and after that he just gassed. And that's what happened when he fought, who was it?
Grutzmacher.
Yeah. Everybody thought he was going to knock out Grutzmacher, including me. He knocks down Grutzmacher. After that, he gasses, gets hurt with body shots, and then he redeems himself against who was it?
Nathan Levy.
Natan Levy. He gets a lot of control down with wrestling, and I think I want to say he's the bigger guy here, but I think he might be a slightly better wrestler. And when it comes to striking, it's really hard to say. But I think this will be a competitive fight, close fight. I'll say Rafa Garcia wins, just because you don't know what Jesse Ronson's going to look like off a 2-year layoff off the roads.
And exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. As you said, that you don't know what he's going to look like off the roids. So it's interesting. 2-year layoff off the roids. I like Rafa Garcia in this fight. I think his striking's good, and as you talked about, he's grappling his last fight against Nathan Levy against another striker in Levy. I like Rafa Garcia. I think this is going to be a decision. I think this is going to go all 3 rounds, and it's going to go in favor of Rafa Garcia.
All right. Moving on. You have the return of Beast Boy, Chris Barnett versus Martin Buday. Chris
I love this
Barnett
guy.
is UFC. Before the UFC, the guy was a journeyman in every sense of the word. He
In
was a bit
Japan.
of a can crusher. He had lost to guys with horrible records, been knocked out multiple times. He was now older in age, but the guy is so exciting to watch. He, it's crazy that this guy's this good at Taekwondo, being so short in stature and so heavy in weight, but nonetheless, the guy still puts on a show every time he fights, and he knocks out John Vellante with a spinning wheel kick. One of the craziest things we've seen in the UFC. And then he follows it up with a front flip to put an exclamation point on it. The guy's a real character, but unfortunately, the UFC is not lining him up with a favorable matchup like Sugar Shanaman. They gave him Martin Buday. Martin Buday on the contender series got a first round TKO finish. The guy's a monster, man. I really think that this is an awful fight for Chris Barnett. Buday is 9-0. He's a huge heavyweight, honestly. He's one of those guys that is not too far from the limit. And he's only 30 years old. Barnett is a fairly older heavyweight. And the guy has a really good that's just really good ground and pound. I think he finds himself rocking Barnett and just getting the ground and pound finish after that. His only losses to Juan Espino, by the way, so there's no shame in that.
Yeah, we know how good Juan is, so it just shows how good Buday is, and he only went to one decision. That was in his MMA debut. So since then, after losing to Juan Espino in his second fight, he's finished every single fight, and a lot of them been by TKO, a few by submissions, and that's how I like him in this fight. I think in the first round, it'll be a little bit of feeling out process. Chris Barnett will empty the tank a little bit, and then I think in that second round is where Martin Buday is going to get him, and I think he's going to submit him. I think he's going to get him to the ground, land a lot of strikes on the ground, little ground and pound, and I think he's going to find the Kimura. And I think I like the Kimura in this one. I think Martin Buday is going to get Kimura, and then he's going to submit Chris Barnett, who is Chris Barnett, as you talked about, is a fantastic character, but as you talked about, the UFC have not matched him up well.
All right, moving on. We have Jordan Levitt versus Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden got his contract on Dana White looking for a fight. He was one of the standouts on the card when they went to Denver, Colorado. He got himself a second round arm triangle in that fight. He looked good in that fight. But before that, I just haven't been impressed with the guy, honestly. Like, his submission defense leaves a lot to be desired. And when he's fighting a guy like Jordan Levitt, who has basically no striking, and all he cares about is going on the ground and getting submissions, I don't think he's a guy of the caliber of Claudio Puelles, who was able to be successful in the grappling sequences. Even though Trey Ogden himself, he fancies himself a grappler, he's been submitted by rear naked choke in the first round, by guillotine in the first round, and again by guillotine. And what's even crazy is that those two guillotine losses in the first round, they were both under 2 minutes, and they were to the same guy, Thomas Gifford. Thomas Gifford, UFC vet, had a terrible run, got destroyed by Mike Davis. I just can't trust him not to get submitted. I really can't. Jordan Levitt is one of the worst strikers in the UFC, but if he gets you on the ground, the guy is so slick down there. Unless you're like Claudio Puelles, I just don't see him surviving submission attempts. I'll say first round guillotine for Jordan Levitt.
Exactly how I like it. As you were talking about the guillotine, Ogden, is falling in the same fate against Thomas Guilford. Thomas Guilford, who, as you talked about, used to fight in the UFC. I think we've all seen maybe that knockout and that fight against Mike Davis. It was brutal, to say the least. And then since losing, coming out of the UFC, Thomas Guilford, he got knocked out on the regional scene by a journeyman. So I shouldn't probably start talking about him, but anyway, Jordan Levitt, as you talked about how good his submissions is, and that's how I like him in this fight. And the guillotine I like as well, and the armbar. I know he likes the armbar, so either the guillotine or the armbar, but submission definitely round one is where it's at. And as you talked about the striking offense of Jordan Levitt it's not really there. And the only submission threat he had, well, only striking sort of submission threat he has is that slam where we saw it against Matt Wyman. So that's the only way he could probably knock him out. But other than that, I think it's Jordan Levitt to take on the ground, and I think he's going to get an armbar, first round armbar.
All right, we'll move on to the next fight: Stella Nunes versus Sam Hughes. I think the loser of this fight probably finds himself getting their walking papers. Stella Nunes, she won. I believe she won it. I believe she got on a huge win streak and won championship, and she fought Angela Lee for the title, who really good champion over at one. Estella had really good success there. She's mainly a striker. She does have some really good submission attacks to her name, but she has been submitted before. No shame in the Angela Lee loss, but you're getting submitted by Ariane Carnelosi. It's not a good look, honestly. And against Sam Hughes is very hittable. She came into the UFC way too early. I don't know what they were thinking matching her up with Tisha Torres. It was just, I don't think that was ever a winnable matchup for her.
In her debut.
I'm surprised she stuck around. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. She lost to Loma Lukbumi and Luana Pinheiro after that. She almost got knocked out against Luana. I think this is a bit of a showcase fight for Estella, quite honestly. Sam Hughes is tough, but I don't think she's tough enough. She quit on the stool in the Tisha Torres fight. I think Estella Nunes will just outpoint it here. I just think unless we see Sam Hughes really attack submissions and maybe tire out Nunes, I think Nunes wins the decision.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on this one. If you look at Sam Hughes, he talks about a 3-fight losing streak. They gave it to Tisha Torres in her UFC debut, where she's only 4-1, and then she gave it to Lulu Boomer, who's, as we know, how good of a striker she is. And then obviously Leona Pereira in her last fight. But as you talked about, Nunes getting submitted in the last fight against Cara. Oh, I forgot her second name.
I can't remember at this moment.
Ariane Carnelosi.
Yeah.
There you go. Carnelosi. So she got submitted against Carnelosi, but as you were talking about, I like Nunes in this fight. I don't think Sam Hughes is UFC caliber, and I think it's going to be shown once again. As you talked about, Nunes fought for the one championship belt against Angela Lee, didn't go away, and then our other losses against Ariane Carnelosi. But yeah, I like Nunes in this fight. I think she's going to get the job done, and I think she's going to get her first win inside the UFC.
All right, we'll move on to the opener of the card. I think this is a really solid scrap. Kevin Kroom taking on Atlatang Haley. Atlatang Haley in his last fight, he went to a draw with Gustavo Lopez. I believe Lopez banked 2 rounds, and then Haley got the 10-8 round there with the control time. Haley's a really well-rounded fighter, but against Casey Kenny, he looked awful. He got hit with every strike in Casey's arsenal that night. And that's one thing you can say about the guy. He's crazy durable. And before that, he beat Ryan Benoit. He beat Dana Batkari. Those are really good wins. And I really think this is a fight where Kevin Kroom will be outgunned. I like Kevin Kroom, I really do, but his cardio has really let him down in many spots. And the submission defense, there's a lot of things in Kevin Kroom's game that I don't really like. I think Haley got to line here. I'll say he gets himself a 3rd round TKO. That'll be my pick. Against Alex Caceres, I think Kevin Kroom would have been knocked out if Caceres had more power. I think Haley has more power.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. And to be honest, I don't really like the cut down to 135 pounds for Kevin Kroom.
Yeah,
I think it's a big cut, a massive cut. He's fought at lightweight, fought at featherweight. I don't like it. I think it's a little bit too much. But I remember when he lost his last fight against Brian Kelleher, when he stepped in the short notice, and he said no more short notice fights. He wants full camps, and this was a full camp. So we're going to see what he's like to be able to, perform on a full camp. I believe it's the only 2 fights in his UFC career he took on. He took on Roosevelt Roberts on a short camp, and then Alex Caceres. Did he get the one on a short as well?
It might have been.
I'm not too sure. Well, it was 4 months between it, so I'm not sure. Anyway, Alex Caceres, he did lose, and then he lost against Brian Gallagher. And then after Brian Gallagher, he said no more short notice fights, and here he is taking a full camp against Haley. And you were talking about not having a good performance against Casey Kenny, and then. Off the top of my head, I know he lost against Kai Asakara, who's a former Ryzen champion. But yeah, I mean, I love Kevin Kroom. He's such a fantastic character. I've had the pleasure to talk to him. His energy that he brings is second to none. But as you talked about, I like Haley in this fight. But if my heart, I want Kevin Kroom to get it done. But if you're looking at recent fights and performances. I think Haley has all the makings to get this one done.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that'll be I think either way, I think we see an exciting fight.
Oh yeah, when Kevin Kroom fights, he brings the entertainment. He's phenomenal.
It's a 14-fight card. I really feel this could be a scenario where we see a ton of finishes on the prelims, and we see a lot of guys start to establish their names. Because let's be honest, not a lot of established names on this card. So, I do think it'll be a memorable one. There's a lot of high action fighters on this card. And one of them is in the main event, Vicente Luque, historically a finisher. I think we see Luque get another fight on his win streak and start to build his claim for a title shot.
Yeah, 100%. When Vicente Luque is fighting, he's never in a dull fight. Just look at his track record. The 2 fights against Brian Barberena. I mean, he's an exciting fight. And Mike Perry, exactly. This is gonna be a good main event, but I believe he's gonna make it look easy. I mean, not look easy, but look easier than his past fights because he's always got himself in trouble. I think he's gonna get the job done. But this is a fantastic main event. I'm looking forward to it. But I'll definitely be tuning into this one. But most of the time on Friday night is when Bellator goes down. So you got Friday, then you got the Saturday. So there's no overlap. So that's good to see. I love it when they do that, is because it's hard to choose between Bellator and UFC, and mostly I would choose UFC, but I like it when they do different days because you get to watch one, then you get to watch the other. Anyway, I talk too much. We talk too much because we have been here for 1 hour and 47 minutes. I mean, when we had UFC 273 to talk about, we know we would be here for a very, very, very long time. Anyway, it's been a fantastic episode. Recap UFC 273. We talked about Volkanovski and how fantastic he is. We talked about Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan and the decision, our thoughts on that, and Khamzat Chimaev, doing his thing, getting the job done. And then we talked about Bellator, AJ McKee versus Patricia Pitbull, Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson, and now we got Vicente Luque versus Bilal Muhammad. Woo! What a fantastic episode. We'll make sure you tune in next week where we get a recap. Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad, Bellator, and then we get to talk about which fight card.
Oh, it's slipping my mind at this moment. It's so annoying when that happens. I believe it is, it is Amanda Lemos versus Jessica Andrade.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Holly Holm, but I'm way off. Yeah, Jessica Andrade versus Amanda Lemos. It's a fantastic fight, by the way. I like that one.
I honestly don't care that Lemos is like, she's a very unestablished name. I think that'll be a super exciting fight.
Yeah, I really like that. And obviously we've got Tanner Bosa for Alexander Romanov in the coming event. Wow,
it's a very solid card. Much better.
Yeah. Charles Jourdain versus Lando Vinal.
That'll be a fight of the year contender.
That is fantastic. And we got the main event. No, not the main event. We got the UFC debut of Dean Barry versus Mike Jackson.
Yeah, crazy.
And Tyson Pedro returns.
Yeah, it's a good card. Much better than this one. But
100%.
I think we'll be entertained either way. That about wraps it up for the episode. Make sure to enjoy the fights, people.
Yeah, 100%. Make sure to enjoy the fights, and we'll see you all next week. Same time next week on Tuesday. See you later, and